So this is a game that I had on Sacred Valley, which is a map that they recently made changes to. Not a particularly great game, but I kind of wanted to talk about. I don't really see this map that often, so I kind of wanted to talk about some of the strategy that I think should occur on this map, and also the tank that I'm using, the FV4202. And so basically what they changed was, well, they changed pretty much the entire middle of the map. And they made this part just basically a bunch of alleys. Essentially what I find is that there's basically three areas that you fight. One is this far south over here. And basically there's this sort of long straightaway on either side. And I think it's actually somewhat intriguing to fight over here, but I think that whichever side wins, there's not a whole lot that you can do, because then you have to go drive down this long straightaway on either side where you can get shot up very easily. So I think that this part of the map, you know, at least in pubs, seems to be fairly inconsequential. You can play the middle of the map. The middle of the map has a lot more solid cover now, and it's basically two different rock structures here. And it's pretty interesting to play, but you don't really get too many firing opportunities on either side here unless you get here really early, or you know, they've already broken through. So I'm not so sure like how this middle area plays, or I don't think that it plays really that solidly. This north area, however, I think plays pretty interestingly, particularly if you have faster tanks. If you come from the south spawn here, you can actually spot there's slower tanks crossing over here, sort of thing. And it's the same thing with over here. You can kind of get an idea of if they push anybody to the middle from the north side. I think the south side has a slight advantage in this respect of playing this north side. Most of the current PUBG meta, at least from what I've seen, is that they kind of swarm around in this north area over here. So what I've started doing from this northeast side is setting up over here, trying to get some lights over here, trying to get an idea of what they send. And then you can actually flank up into this area by just driving up over this hill over here. And most pubs tend to be on this outside lane here. There's also this sort of inside lane that you can enter from either side, which allows for an interesting sort of flanking opportunities, and that's sort of the path that we're going to try to take. And then about the 4202, the 4202 is not really my favorite medium tank. It has just the standard APCR shells for the base shells, which is just like all the tier 10 mediums. But the premium shell is the Hesh shell. It's kind of a lowish pen Hesh shell. 210 pen isn't a whole lot, and it suffers from the fact that Hesh basically uses the same, well, not basically, it does use the same mechanics as HE, so you have to be careful with how you fire it. You can't fire it into spaced armor, for example, otherwise it'll basically eat the Hesh shell and you'll do HE damage rather than actual pen damage. And so for all intents and purposes, the FV4202 doesn't really have a premium shell, but if you can find situations to use the Hesh, it actually increases the DPM of the 4202 pretty significantly, because I think that the base damage goes up to like the average damage goes up to like 480. And then so at the start, like I said, you'll notice that most of our pubbies go on this north route, which is fine. We have a 50B that's gone into this flanking area early, which is great. We've got a few guys going south, but you don't really need that much, like I said, and you don't necessarily need to push up into here. You can play further back and just wait for them to come out if you don't want to engage in that firefight. And so our 50B is engaging this 54E1, this M103 over here. So I'm going to run over there and see if I can help. He's got some backup from the Type 61 that's on his east. And between them, they can get down most of these tanks pretty quickly. So they've got 2 9s down. You know, we've got a nice little lead here right off the bat. And see how we've still got most of our tanks here. So we still want to see if we can flank. And flanking through here early, you know, you could go all the way around this side, is a little bit dangerous. Flanking through this little sort of setup right here, see how this IS-7 is trying to push up? I think it's a better route. The only gripe that I have about that is that this particular little alley here isn't really very wide, so you can only really fit like one person at a time through certain parts of it. And see how they're like falling back now? The HP lead is relatively even, and I think I bounce a shot off this guy. I shoot a little bit high on that FV183, unfortunately. But then he shoots, and so I have an opportunity now. I can get 2 for 1, so I know I can kill this 215B, this 21583. So I take shot from the IS-3 and then just kill the 183. And then I want to start heading back, right? And so the health lead, we're back up to our 1k health lead, which is what we had after we killed their first 2 9s. But it's still a pretty close game. And so now I was thinking about heading around to this other flanking side, and I saw their other FV183 over here. And then with a lot of these rear-mounted tanks, you can just track them through the flywheel like this, and basically back up, use something as cover, and you can just keep them tracked by shooting them through this area, and you can track and damage at the same time, which is what we want to do there. So we've wrapped up this part pretty neatly, but see, they're pushing through on this side already, and so we're going to have to go back. But we've got a nice little health lead now, and so it's probably just a matter of wrapping up, or mopping up. And then I think I fail on this E5 multiple times. He's facing a little bit down, his tank is facing a little bit downwards, so it's kind of hard to hit the lower glacis. That second shot was trying to hit his commander's hatch. And then like as soon as he backs up though, I can hit the lower glacis. And then what I notice as I'm charging in here is that most of these tanks are low health by the time I get there, and I think that STI takes another hit before I get there. And so it's fine for me to just sort of charge in there. And then the idea is that, so I have more health than all these guys combined, but they have, you know, 4 more guns, or 3 more guns than I have. So the idea is that you don't want to have too many of them to have shots on you at any one given time. And then I was going to do a double ram / shot kill, but I didn't reload in time, and then I whiffed my shot anyways. And then so now what I want to do is, they're all basically converging on my position, so I just want to make it difficult for the Type 61 to shoot me. If the T-71 shoots me, that's fine, but I don't want to have the Type 61 shooting me on reload. And then I had switched to Hesh for that other dude, and then just you want to be sure that you don't shoot them in the tracks. If you have Hesh loaded, you want to shoot a little bit higher. And again, Hesh is a really sketchy mechanic, so I don't typically use it on the FV4202. I don't think it's particularly useful. But I think that's a good way to sort of play that map, particularly in faster tanks, is to sort of play that middle area and then just flank through the north. You can go around through that, what is that, like that E2, E2, E3 area, but usually your safest bet is to get into this C3 area, figure out what's there, and then if you need to, you can always just go back after that. And so, stat-wise, I don't know, it wasn't the most fantastic game. We got 9 kills, but most of that was, you know, other people did the damage, and we just sort of mopped up the balance. So that doesn't really matter. I mean, we still did more damage than the rest of the team, and most of that, again, is just from being maneuverable and relocating to where you can get shots and where you can get damage. And in this particular game, the damage was pretty distributed. Our 10s didn't really do as much as as you would like, but our 9s did really well. So for the most part, and so that made it pretty easy, because they had not a lot of tanks, but they had a significant number of tanks on that south end, and we basically had 3 tanks down there that held them up for a while. And so that certainly changes the tone, and as so often happens on a lot of pub maps, really a lot of these things are, can you win one flank before the other one loses? And in this particular case, we were able to mop up the north before the south was completely gone. So that's my mini review on Sacred Valley, so I hope that was helpful, and thanks for watching.